Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, May 11th, 2026, and today we are breaking down sweet corn and moving high tunnels, not at the same time, or at least let's hope not. So let's do it. All right, happy Monday, everyone. How were your all's weekends? Hopefully you did something nice for the mother or mothers in your life for Mother's Day here in the US, at least. Don't want to freak anybody out in, England or something. We had a lovely time and even ended up at the Peddler's Mall for a while. If you're not familiar with the Peddler's Mall, these are like perennial flea markets. But to me, they are like little pop culture museums that you can actually shop in. When Hannah and I were young and poor and just getting started, that's where we would go for buying like basically everything from dishes for our house to hose for the garden, shovels, pitchforks, all the things. The cast iron skillet that we use today still came from a Peddler's Mall. In fact, we estimate it has now cooked well over 10,000 meals for us. So that was a solid investment. Anyway, a nice weekend overall, all the way through. We went to a soccer game on Friday for Mother's Day, go racing. Did some kids soccer on Saturday and the Peddler's Mall thing on Sunday, which was very rich. Today, it's an early harvest for some big orders that we have this week. And then it's just like getting moving because the season is popping. And now that we are, crossing my fingers, officially past the last chance of frost for the spring, staring at, in fact, some quite warm temperatures over the weekend. So I'm thinking we're done. Oh, quick reminder that I will be doing I don't know if it's a reminder if I haven't told you yet, but let's pretend that I will be doing a live on Wednesday for the month of May at 9 a.m. Eastern. So bring your questions to YouTube and we will try to bust those out, or at least as many as we can. Set your reminders now so you have no excuse. You can't be like, oh, I forgot, or oh, I missed it. Nope. Yeah, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard. Or maybe you're going to have to set your alarm clocks, though, because I recognize that that's pretty early for you West Coasters. Anyway, it is Monday, where every week this year we are digging into a single less talked about crop in a series we're calling Planting and Raving. Today, the crop that we're going to break down is sweet corn. Now, some of these crops you may be like, why do you call them less talked about? I mean, specifically in the market garden context, because this is definitely not one that comes up a lot in terms of like how to grow it. Now, like any normal human, I love me some sweet corn. Is there a more summery flavor than a grilled ear of sweet corn with butter, or even drizzle on a little lime juice and some olive oil and a little Parmesan too, if you want to give it a little kick, just saying. But let's just get the elephant out of the room here, called out immediately. The reason it's not talked about so much in the market garden world, as a professional grower, you will just not really make much money on it. There's almost no profit to sweet corn. Sorry, it's super slow growing. It does not fetch a very high price at market. It's heavy, slow to pick, not super worth it in general. However, that doesn't mean it's without market value or that it isn't worth growing something you love, like sweet corn. I love sweet corn. Charlie loves sweet corn.
Look who showed up out of nowhere. Do you want this? If I don't give Charlie her own ear of corn, she will attack me while I'm shucking these.
You just have to be very strategic about it. So in this first segment, we'll do what we normally do and talk about varieties. We'll also talk about starting in trays versus seeding. And then in the segment 3, we will plant the corn, protect it from critters, both big and wormy, and harvest, storage, etc. So, okay, the first thing that people often bring up when I talk to them about sweet corn is any type of GMOs. The chances of you accidentally buying genetically engineered corn seed or any other seed is basically zero. The reason is that you generally have to sign some sort of agreement to purchase those seeds. For instance, if you get the elegantly named Biotech Obsession 2 sweet corn from Harris Seeds, you have to have a Bayer Technology Stewardship Agreement license number to even purchase the seed. So in general, that's a non-factor. You're not going to just accidentally wind up with some GMO seed. And if you want to make it even more of a non-factor, just buy organic compliant seed, which cannot be genetically engineered or tainted with GM genetics. And if it's organic, it also means it cannot be treated with sides or fertilizers, which many corn seeds, even some of the ones sold at places that you might not expect, are treated. That treated thing is important. You do not want to buy treated seeds for a myriad of reasons, but especially if you are trying to avoid chemical fertilizers or fungicides in your soil. And as we've discussed before, we are all doing that. We all want to avoid those things. Hybrids are fine. Hybrid it's not a bad word. I don't know why it gets such a bad name except for its relationship to GMOs. Hybrid just means that they crossed two parent plants who happened to produce particularly good corn with the traits that they were after. And hybrid vigor is an added bonus. Like the mutts of the plant world, hybrids just tend to grow faster and be healthier. Now, many sweet corn seeds are patented, so that's one reason maybe you'd avoid a hybrid. But there are some open pollinated varieties, and I've had okay luck with growing those. So if you're not into seed patents, there are options out there to look into. In fact, we grew some last year, some open pollinated corn, and I had very few earworms. Maybe the least that I can ever remember having. Anyway, I change it up a little bit every year on what we grow, usually growing some sort of bicolor or just another based on what sounds good to me at the moment. Sometimes they have fun names like espresso. I like that. And what is available as organic. Some customers are partial to all one color, either all white or all yellows. I think I just said yeller. Or all yellow. So it is good to know what your customers like before growing it. But also, if you have some bicolor sweet corn that isn't sprayed sitting right there in front of them and they pass that up, I think that's their loss. Now, a couple things for starting corn seed. We like to prime our seed to speed up the germination. This is the same when starting the seeds in trays as it is when starting them in the field, like directly. We soak the seed overnight in a compost tea or extract to encourage faster germination. That's what priming is. Now, I will be honest, my preference with corn is to directly sow it into the soil if I have that option. The reason is that it's a little finicky when it comes to starting it in trays. The taproot likes to get down fast and far and doesn't love to be messed with too much, which makes starting it in trays a little tricky. However, trays do give you a little bit more flexibility on the season, and you can get them into the ground a little bit earlier and growing a little earlier than directly seeding them, because you do not have to keep a bed clean for a full week while the seeds germinate, as well as, protect the seeds from birds and all those good things. Well, you still have to do that in trays, but not in the field. I'll save all that field stuff though for the third segment, but we usually start our corn seed in wind strip trays. If we're going to do trays, those are the ones with the little slits on the side. We will grow those out until only like a few inches tall, 3 to 5 inches or so, up to 13 centimeters. That is typically past the stage where the crows will pick them out, but not too developed so as to limit the production due to the root tampering. Corn likes it hot, so make sure to get the germ temps as close to the mid 80s in Fahrenheit or 27 to 30 degrees Celsius to get the best germination and protect the trays from all the critters, rodents and the avian alike. Pretty much everything loves sweet corn, unfortunately. Now, in terms of marketing, if you plan to sell it, which we always sell a little bit and to pay for the labor and the seed cost, to then freeze the rest because I like it in basically everything over the winter, it is really hard to sell sweet corn for what it costs to actually produce it. The minimum price is at least $1 an ear, and that's not actually really making any money. $2 an ear, and it's actually an okay break-even crop, or mildly okay. The reason is at 2 ears per square foot in a good year, you're looking at 400 plants on 200 square feet. That's our beds. So in a perfect world, that's 800 ears, and it's never perfect. So let's say I get 650 great ears at $1 an ear, and that only covers a little over half what we call the rent on a bed for the season. So that's, let's say I want a bed to make us $1,200 in rent. That covers about half of it. So I have to grow at least one more other profitable crop alongside the corn or after the corn, like lettuce, for instance, which is my go-to in these situations. And that will help to make up for what the corn doesn't earn. Now, those numbers are arbitrary, but it's just important to keep in mind that just because it's a fan favorite, and sweet corn no doubt is one of those, that it doesn't always make sense for every farmer, every scale. If you're just a home grower, to me, the value is that you can't buy actually sweet corn at the store. Like, it is worth growing at home if you can. To me, sweet corn loses a substantial amount of its sweetness in the first 12 hours after harvest. So the sweet corn at the store, or often even at the market, isn't actually all that sweet anymore. It's still good. You can still do boil it or grill it or whatever and pour some butter over top of it. But for the home gardener, it's not a great use of space, but if the calories are the goal, but it is a solid use of space if flavor and experience are the goal. We will dive a little more into the growing side of things, plus harvesting and selling, in the third segment. But for now, let's talk about moving tunnels, not just like around in a circle or anything, but from one place to another. That'll make sense on the other side. BRB.
And I started some of these plants on the 16th of April. And some of them actually on the 9th. I guess the onions here were started on the 9th. I got cover crop growing out there, and it's not quite ready, and the weather is like cooler than usual. So I've had these out in the greenhouse. I'm just going to leave them here by the back window and hopefully get them to slow down, because I can't put them in the ground probably for another, 2 weeks or so.
Today's episode is brought to you by BCS America. If you're practicing no-till or low-till farming, you know that heavy equipment is often the enemy of your soil structure. That's where BCS two-wheeled tractors come in. Built for small farms, market gardens, and regenerative growers, BCS tractors give you the power to manage beds efficiently without unnecessary compaction. For the low and no-till grower, there are two attachments that change the game. The BCS Power Harrow stirs only the top inch or two of soil to incorporate soil amendments and create a perfect seedbed without soil inversion or pulling up weed seeds. And when it's time to terminate cover crops, that flail mower shreds organic matter into a beautiful, nutrient-rich mulch right on top of the bed. To find your local dealer and see the full lineup of attachments designed for the way you farm, head to bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com. All right, back to the show. All right, a quick and loving reminder that if you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Ian at Grindstone Farms, who writes, quote, "Question, I purchased a 30 by 90 foot Gothic frame from a local farm. Will be ordering plastic from Bootstrap Farmer shortly. Aside from the basics of leveling ground, creating roll-up sides and such, ideas one can learn from generic high tunnel setup videos. Are there any tips or tricks you suggest for a first-time high tunnel build, especially considering the no-till system? This tunnel has no ends on it originally, so I'm assuming I want to design doors and space for fans. I'm planning on starting with tomatoes, eggplant, etc. for a local chef in this Gothic. Zone 5B, beds are already established and have silage tarps on them for now for quick solarization as the snow melts. Just have to build the tunnel over top of them. Excited to be in the high tunnel phase of my journey. Thanks for helping me get there," end quote. Okay, this is awesome. Thank you, Ian, and thank you for all of your support. Congrats on getting a tunnel. So a few things to get out of the way from the jump, though. First is, I'm assuming the tunnel was already up when you purchased it, and so you had to take it down and it was not sold as a fresh kit. If that's the case, moving a tunnel can be a challenge. So make sure you are staying super organized as you take it down and move it, keeping track of which bow went where, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, starting in the front, ending in the back. Just keep track of all of that stuff so that you put it back in the right order. With that in mind, for the listeners, in general, I don't recommend buying tunnels and moving them, like taking them down. The amount of time and frustration you will save is often worth the money in just buying a new one. And also the NRCS has grants for that. So you can often get one for pretty much free or cheap and then have somebody else build it, and they'll pretty much pay for all of that. But sometimes if you get a really sweet deal on it, obviously that, it can be worth it, especially if you're not in a rush to get it going. And it depends a bit on the tunnel. Like transferring a cat tunnel is no biggie, but if it's an in-ground tunnel on post with all the screws and bolts drilled in, and you have like all the different trusses and purlins and all the stuff to take down, then it can come with some significant challenges being retrofitted to your own property from another. So anyway, anytime you do go that route, make sure to mark every single piece really, really well and stay profoundly organized. You may still have to drill some new holes, but hopefully that will help keep it from being too much of a headache and too uneven when you finally get it back up. Okay, so back to the question. For the ends, you will indeed need to design something, and it must be something that can withstand wind. And to that point, make sure to get wind bracing if the tunnel does not come with it already. There are a million designs out there for end walls. I like a classic door or sliding door with polycarbonate. You can even just get like a basic screen door and build a frame around that, and then build a frame around your tunnel. Zipper walls can work too, like you basically build the basic frame and then you have a zipper up and down. Though I do worry about the durability of those in like heavy winds. Make sure with the door that any equipment you will ever need to get into the tunnel, that you can clear that doorway, or however you frame it out. You've got to be able to get wheelbarrows and tractors or whatever else in there. So make sure that you're giving yourself a little extra space on the end, and you're accounting for the widest thing you may ever want to move in there. As for a fan on the ends, that's great if you want to go that route. But also tall hip boards, like I like them pretty high, like not hip boards, more like shoulder boards. And some automatic end wall vents will help tremendously with ventilation in a tunnel that size. 30 by 90 is pretty big and it will hold in a lot of heat. So definitely think about ventilation. Totally endorse that. Good ventilation just makes a huge difference in airflow and disease prevention. And if you find through time that it's not working well enough, you may need to invest in some greenhouse circulation fans or exhaust fans to move the air through better. If you do plan to add electric at some point for the fans, for instance, you might also have to take that into account now, where on the end wall you would place, some sort of electrical box and get all the line buried and all that stuff. You may even want to dig the line before installing it, even if you don't connect it right away or don't even know if you'll need it. That's not that hard to do after the fact, though with irrigation, it may be a little harder to protect from freezing. So think about getting any irrigation line that you want going into the tunnel buried before building it, if you can, especially if you plan to grow all winter, in time, and need to protect, those pipes from freezing. Again, it doesn't have to be connected. You just, plan for it now ahead of time. Consider how you're going to deal with weeds on the edges before installation too. I mow and weed whack, but that's not very efficient. A lot of people use landscape fabric or more permanent options like cement. But I know for me, I did not have the money for the cement and am trying to reduce the plastic. So we mow and weed whack, and I'm sure others will have some thoughts on managing those sides. But for me, that's kind of the stuff that immediately comes to mind. On the no-till side of things, there's not a lot to add to what it sounds like you're already doing. The nice thing about tunnels is that they are in some ways easier to not till, or at least like more logical to not till than other areas because the space is awkward and it gets fumey quickly. So it almost forces you to think strategically about tillage and equipment usage. Anyway, let us know, commenters, what you all think. Otherwise, we're going to take one last quick break. And when we come back, sweet, sweet relief or corn. Be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Grown By. Grow smarter with Grown By, the farmer-owned cooperative. Grown By is the platform for online sales of everything, custom and traditional CSAs, halves of beef, flower bouquets, wholesale to restaurants, and now Grown By supports in-person sales too. Their new app, Grown By Register, you can supercharge your market and farm stand, finally bringing together your online and offline sales and customer data. Grown By is proud to make local food accessible by processing SNAP benefits online and in person right within the app. Grown By helps you put your best food forward. Schedule a demo at coop.grownby.com/no-till. That's coop.grownby.com/no-till. Today's episode is also brought to you by Good Agriculture. If the season is picking up and the pile of receipts is starting to grow, you're not alone. Good Agriculture handles farm bookkeeping so you can stay ahead of the mess before it piles up. They keep your books organized each month, help you understand what's coming in and what's going out, and show you where your farm stands so you can make better business decisions throughout the season. If you're behind, they'll help get everything caught up. They also help farmers find funding and stay ahead of grant deadlines. You run the farm, they help the business. Learn more at goodagriculture.com/info. That's goodagriculture.com/info. All right, back to the show. All right, returning to our sweet corn. So sweet corn obviously needs to be planted after the last chance of frost and preferably when the soil is fairly warm. Tarping can help a bit with that, but it's ideal to have the soil warm and weed-free before planting or transplanting. For sowing it directly, I aim for one plant every 6 inches, which usually requires planting a seed every 3 inches or so. So that would be they're being sown at 7 centimeters apart, aiming for like 15 or so centimeters between plants. So you may have to clear a few of them. For transplanting, I aim for around 6 inches apart between plants with 2 rows on a 48-inch bed. That's a 122 centimeter bed. On your average market garden bed, however, which you know the ones, those are the 30-inch or 75-centimeter ones, you are usually looking at 1 row of sweet corn per bed. It's not a great use of space, but a whole lot closer, and you may end up with really small ears. Fertility is really going to matter here, as a corn is an exceedingly hungry crop. So compost is good, but it may take a little feather meal and or alfalfa meal to help sustain it. A little dried or composted chicken manure will go a long way as well. Just make sure that you're not overspending on fertilizer because, again, this is a slow crop that does not make very much money. Pest-wise, whenever I directly sow corn, and this is a critical point, I always cover it with row cover until it is several inches tall to both ensure the heat I need for good germination and also to protect the sprouts from birds. Rodents can still get in there, but there's only so much you can do about rodents. That's a perennial problem in some places. I guess if you're on a raised bed or something, you can seal the edges or something. But on our scale, we never lose very much to rodents anyway here. So we don't worry about it too much. But if you're dealing with things like gophers that maybe, I don't know, will scoop up all your sweet corn seed, then you do have to be more conscious of those things. I would get it germinating absolutely as fast as you can. So that pre-soak, that priming will help you a lot. And then maybe just transplant it.
When it gets to that 6 or so inches tall, we will take the row cover off, that we put on for the pest protection, and then it just stays off and we keep it cultivated. Now, the other factor with sweet corn is in that lack of profitability is that it's slow to grow, which means the need for protecting from weeds cultivation is super high. Stuff can germinate and go to seed before the sweet corn has even finished. So anything you can do to prep the soil, like stale seed bedding or flame weeding, etc., before the sweet corn is planted is critical. And then you've just got to stay on top of things, which again is going to drive your profitability down. Because even if you're grossing $600 on a bed of sweet corn, you've still probably put, $50 to $100 in labor on it. So it's still cutting into your profitability, especially if you have to cultivate it like multiple times. Now, for harvest, once the silks appear, you have about 3 weeks before the corn is ready to pick. If it's a very warm spell, it may be ready a little bit sooner, which is nice. If it's a very cool spell, it may take a little longer. The silks will be fully dry when the sweet corn is ready. Feel the outside of the corn, and it should be firm. Feel free to open a couple ears and just check. And, because every variety feels a little different when it's finished. All of the kernels should be filled out, though, all the way up to the top. That very tip of it will tell you how well it's doing. Like if the top still has underdeveloped kernels, then it's probably not quite there yet. I like to go through, pop a few off, and just go ahead and eat them in the field. And then I can be the judge myself for how they're doing. Like I said at the top, sweet corn loses something like half of its sweetness in the first 12 hours after harvest. So the faster you can get it frozen or get it to the customer or just get it into your mouth, the better it will taste. We used to harvest before market, in fact. Before we would bring it like to a CSA drop off or whatever, like 5 and 6 in the morning, we would harvest all of our sweet corn then, because that was what was going to retain the sweetness the most. Most people have genuinely never had real sweet corn fresh off the cob in the field. That is living. Now, if it gets a little mature, that's all good too. You don't want it to turn hard, but if it gets to the point when it's tasting a little starchy, then you just have roasting ears or boiling ears or grilling ears, and that's fine too. Those are good, but you do want to catch it before it starts to starch up. Also, after harvest, it needs to be cooled down fast. So for us, we go straight into the cooler with the bins. Otherwise, it will heat up overnight or something and lose its sweetness a little quicker. And that would make for some truly expensive, but probably pretty good compost. Corn is heavy. Just physically, it's very heavy. Therefore, transporting it out of the field, you need some sort of wheels. A wheelbarrow can work for that. But corn's weight also means it can cost a little extra in gas. So if you're loading up a van or something with sweet corn, it's going to cost you even more, which cuts into your profitability, and you have to price it that way. I harvest into a bin and then put that bin in a wheelbarrow and then take it to the cooler. I also have this little pouch that I'll harvest into, and then I'll just dump those into the bin, put the bin in the wheelbarrow, and then take that to the cooler. Again, stuff gets heavy. When farming organically, you can end up with earworms as well. That's the main crop pest for us, and I will often just cut the tips off, honestly. That's easier and cheaper labor-wise than spraying BTK, a natural pesticide for those worms. On the silks every 3 to 5 days. No thanks for that. I pull the husk back and cut the tip off if necessary. That usually works for me. And also, I warn buyers that because we grow organically, there is a possibility of bugs. Anyway, that's about it for now, but happy to fill in more deets or answer more questions on Wednesday, in fact, for the live if you want, or on Friday for Feedback Friday. Otherwise, we are complete here Monday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That is an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor this show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Michelle for all of her work. Huge shouts to the No Till Growers Board of Directors. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music. Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, you sign up in the month of May, you get a shout on the show. So big shout outs today to Suzanne. I start to get worried when our views are up 25%, but our donations are down. I start to worry a little bit about the economy. So this makes me feel a little better. Thank you, Suzanne. All right, so this week's fictional nibble is about an asteroid. And like any self-respecting asteroid, this particular space rock is headed straight for us. The size of this thing is substantial, like the size of our moon, roughly. But the good news is that we spotted it a long time ago. It was big, that helps. The world's governments stepped up, and they all worked together and made a really good plan. They were on top of it, a multi-phase plan that had several good backups, all the things. Everyone on the planet was super proud, and then they see it. What? Well, that is for tomorrow on The Big Bad Rock. That's a terrible name. Keeping it. Thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you then. Bye.
We see you, the one behind the camera, making sure the moments that matter get remembered. Shutterfly turns your memories into something that lasts, like photo books that tell your travel stories, photo blankets that feature your favorite cuddle buddies, or a canvas print that brings you back to the moment you said, I do. Big moments or everyday ones, Shutterfly makes it easy to keep them close.
Make something that means something.